My brother charged $74,000 to attend his wedding. Then it all exploded in his face, and then I had just gotten home from work, still half covered in sleet and bad takeout decisions, when I opened the email that detonated my entire month. The subject line read, "We are thrilled to invite you." And for a second, I thought maybe my old boss was getting remarried or a college friend was trying to drag me into another overpriced weekend in Napa. But then I saw who it was from. My brother, Travis. I hadn't talked to him much in the past year. He was always busy flying to Montenegro or pitching apps no one understood, but I didn't think he hated me enough to do what he did next. The email began with the kind of artificial enthusiasm you only get from someone who's written the phrase "game changer" more than once in a single day. "Dear Derek," it said, "we are beyond ecstatic to welcome you to the wedding celebration of Travis and Jasmine, an unforgettable, world-class event in the stunning city of Santorini." Right there, I knew I was about to read something catastrophic. Travis was always chasing status. Jasmine, his fiancée, was a former Instagram lifestyle coach who now sold pyramid-shaped crystals and hosted webinars about monetizing inner radiance. I kept reading anyway. They were offering an elite guest package, which sounded like a scam from a James Bond villain. For the very low price of $74,000, guests would receive a 2-night stay in a cliffside villa, a seat at the yacht ceremony/after party, a private fireworks and champagne finale, and access to some unnamed celebrity entertainer who I assumed was probably someone who got kicked off a talent show. The best part? Flights weren't included, and everyone had to sign an NDA. Yes, an actual legal contract, just to attend their wedding. I had to reread the email 3 times before I could process what the hell I was looking at. I sat down, opened a beer, and stared at the screen like it owed me money. My first thought wasn't even anger, it was confusion. What sort of lunatic sends out a wedding invitation that doubles as a ransom note? I grabbed my phone and called my sister, Natalie, who's the only person in the family who hasn't completely lost her mind. She picked up on the first ring, and before I could say anything, she blurted out, "You got the fucking wedding email, didn't you?" "Yep," I said. 74 grand. For a weekend. "I thought it was 7,400 at first," she said, sounding half horrified and half impressed. Then I read it again. "Who the hell are they marrying? The Pope?" "I think Jasmine thinks she's royalty now," I said. "And we're the peasants paying for her coronation." Natalie groaned so hard it crackled through the speaker. "And the NDA? What the hell is that? Is Travis planning to sacrifice a goat during the vows?" "It's to protect their privacy, apparently," I said. "You know, because nothing says sacred commitment like threatening your own family with legal action." The next morning, I made the mistake of checking the family group chat. It had exploded into pure digital chaos. Uncle Neil had already declared the wedding a greedy shakedown, and my cousin Brandon called it a cult masquerading as a honeymoon. Aunt Janice, ever the optimist, was trying to keep things civil, while Grandma Doris, God bless her, asked, "Is the NDA about nudity or murder?" I don't think she was joking. Within hours, relatives started publicly opting out. Cousin Tara said she'd rather spend that money paying off her student loans. Uncle Warren announced he wouldn't spend that much to see Elvis rise from the dead, let alone watch Travis say vows on a boat. My mom, naturally, tried to play peacekeeper. She called me that afternoon with her usual passive-aggressive optimism. "I know it's expensive, sweetheart, but it's your brother's big day." I don't remember the last time my mom paid for a haircut over $20, so I couldn't figure out how she was taking this so lightly. "Mom, it's $74,000, I said slowly, like I was explaining to a child why fire is hot. "For 2 days. Without airfare. And with a legally binding contract." "I know, but it's in Santorini," she said, like the city was the one charging me interest. "He's just trying to make it special." "Special? This isn't a wedding. It's a white-collar crime." She sighed. "Well, your father and I are still talking about it. Travis really wants the whole family to be there. Then maybe Travis should be paying for it." There was a long pause, followed by the soft clink of her teaspoon against ceramic. "He's under a lot of pressure, you know. Jasmine's family is very particular." "I'm sure they are," I muttered. They probably taught her how to invoice her emotions. Later that night, Travis called me. No preamble. No hello. Just straight to business. I hear you're not coming, he said. I can't afford to come, Travis. I replied, trying to stay calm. Or at least I'm not willing to bankrupt myself to stand on a boat and pretend Jasmine is Mother Earth. That's not what this is about, he snapped. This is about family. No, it's about you needing an audience for your destination fantasy and not wanting to foot the bill. He was quiet for a moment, then scoffed. If you actually loved me, you'd find a way. I stared at my wall for a long time. Then I hung up. That's when I knew this whole thing was going to crash hard. Not just the wedding, Travis's entire illusion. He had spent so long pretending he was someone else that he expected the rest of us to buy into it, literally. But we weren't playing along anymore. And the more he pushed, the more cracks started to show. It only got worse from there. I woke up the next morning to 57 unread messages in the family group chat and a missed call from Natalie that had come in just after midnight. I hadn't even had coffee yet when she called again, barely waiting for me to answer before launching into a full rant. You are not going to believe the meltdown that happened last night, she said, her voice vibrating with caffeine and chaos. Brandon posted a screenshot of the wedding invoice breakdown, like an actual itemized list, and it sent the whole family into DEFCON 1. I rubbed my eyes and sat up slowly, dreading whatever absurdity was about to hit me. Okay, hit me. What did it say? Do you want the highlights or the whole train wreck? She asked. Give me the fireworks. We'll get to the charred debris later. All right, she said, already laughing. So apparently the 74 grand includes $22,000 for a scented memory lounge, which is just a fucking room filled with curated smells of Jasmine and Travis's relationship, like sandalwood and lavender, and some godforsaken custom perfume they made together. I stared at my ceiling, wondering if it would be weird to start drinking at 9:17 a.m. They're bottling nostalgia and making us pay to sniff it? It gets worse, Natalie continued gleefully. They're also charging $12,000 for a sacred union ceremony, led by a wellness guru named Phoenix. He used to be a corporate accountant, but now apparently channels dolphins. I need to lay down, I muttered, already lying down. Uncle Neil lost it, she said. He called it a hot tub cult wedding and said he's bringing popcorn to the next family meeting. I could picture it. Neil standing in his garage with a beer and a folding chair, ready to live stream the implosion. And then Jasmine, Natalie added, her voice sharp with fury, sent out her own voice note to the group chat, like some kind of royal address. Please tell me she didn't start with my beloveds. She started with to the awakened souls among you. I almost threw my phone into the dishwasher. I dragged myself to the kitchen and opened the fridge, hoping to find some food that hadn't expired during the week I spent spiraling into emotional debt. I found some yogurt, a half-eaten lime, and a bag of spinach that looked like it had witnessed war. Did Mom say anything yet? I asked as I poured the saddest bowl of cereal imaginable. She's still trying to make peace. Last night she said, maybe we should be more understanding. Weddings are stressful. And then Dad said, so is Vietnam, but I didn't make my family pay 70 grand to watch me suffer. I snorted so hard I almost inhaled a piece of cereal. The group chat was now a full-blown war zone. Every couple of minutes, a new cousin would pop in to say they were out. Tara, who'd originally said she might go, wrote a paragraph about how she couldn't in good conscience support a wedding that treated family like clients. Even Aunt Janice, the eternal optimist, finally cracked and said she wouldn't spend more on a wedding than she had on her daughter's college tuition. Jasmine, of course, responded with a 6-paragraph monologue accusing everyone of projecting their scarcity wounds onto her moment of joy. She ended it with a quote from a poet no one recognized and something about energetic alignment. I think she thought it was a mic drop, but it just made everyone even more furious. Then Travis chimed in with what I can only describe as the digital equivalent of throwing gasoline on a bonfire. If you can't afford to be part of something extraordinary, he wrote, then maybe it says more about your priorities than it does about us. Natalie immediately responded with, Travis, we're not out here buying yachts and memory cents. Some of us are trying to pay for root canals and daycare. he replied with, "Excuses are just fear in a trench coat." I nearly threw my phone across the kitchen. The most surprising moment came from Grandma Doris, who finally unmuted herself and wrote, "I was alive during the Depression. This is dumber." By lunchtime, I was getting texts from extended family members I hadn't heard from in years. My cousin Pete, who lives in Oregon and once tried to sell me on a compost toilet business, sent me a screenshot of the NDA, which was apparently written by Jasmine's spiritual attorney. It included a clause about nonverbal transmission of sacred knowledge, which I think meant you weren't allowed to roll your eyes at the ceremony. By the time I got back from my sad little walk around the block, I had another message, this time from Travis. A personal one. "I'll pay for your attendance," he wrote. "I'll cover the entire package. Just say yes." But the NDA is non-negotiable. I stared at that message for a long time. It was so completely deranged that I almost respected the level of denial it took to type it. This man had spent weeks emotionally blackmailing his own family, publicly calling us low vibrational, and now he was trying to bribe me into silence just so he wouldn't have to say he lost his own brother. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have something to say. I had entire essays building inside my head, but because I knew it wouldn't matter. He wasn't listening. He didn't want honesty. He wanted obedience. That night, Natalie called again. "He offered to pay for me too," she said, her voice tight with disgust. "But I'm not signing an NDA to eat vegan ravioli and pretend his ex-influencer girlfriend invented love." "You're sure?" I asked. "I hear the ravioli comes with an affirmation card. If I wanted to be manipulated while dehydrated and trapped on a boat, I'd join a cult," she snapped. We both laughed. But it was the tired kind of laughter, the kind that happens right before everything really starts to unravel. Because what none of us knew, at least not yet, was that this wasn't just a wedding disaster in the making. This was the beginning of something way messier. Something that was going to unravel all of Travis's carefully curated image, piece by piece. And we were just getting started. 3 days after Travis offered to bankroll my attendance, still with that ridiculous NDA attached, the group chat devolved into something I could only describe as digital warfare. What used to be a family message thread filled with birthday wishes and shared recipes had become a virtual thunderdome where passive aggression died and full-on hostility was born. Cousin Marcia dropped in a message late Tuesday night with a screenshot from the wedding website's guest list manager. Apparently, she'd logged in to update her RSVP only to discover the number of confirmed attendees had plummeted from around 180 to just under 80. She posted a side-by-side comparison of the original list and the updated one, and the names that had vanished read like a headcount of every rational person in the family. Aunt Brenda immediately responded with, "Is this real? Where the hell did everyone go?" Then Cousin Paul chimed in with, "I think people are finally realizing that paying 74 grand to sit next to a guru named Phoenix isn't worth the spiritual enlightenment." Things escalated fast from there. People started openly confessing that they were out. No more excuses, no more sugarcoating it. It became this cascade of dropout declarations. "Can't justify this cost. I've got 2 kids in braces." The yacht party sounded cool until the NDA made it sound like Fight Club. My favorite was from Uncle Lenny, who wrote, "I wouldn't spend this much money to watch my own funeral, let alone your wedding." For a while, Travis stayed quiet. But Jasmine went full meltdown. She sent a message so long I had to click read more 3 separate times. She accused the family of betrayal, of undermining her sacred celebration, and of being energetically misaligned with the purpose of the union. I still don't know what that means, but it sounded like something you'd hear right before a character in a horror movie gets possessed. She ended her diatribe with, "Your bitterness is the stone in our river of joy, and I won't let it dam our flow." Natalie texted me directly just to say, "I swear to God, if she sends one more message with river metaphors, I'm flying to Santorini just to throw her into one." By Thursday, the wedding planners had begun jumping ship. Aunt Brenda called me in a low, conspiratorial whisper like she was reporting on a hostage negotiation. "You won't believe this," she said. "The catering company pulled out. They said the deposit bounced, and they haven't gotten the second installment. Wait, I said, pacing around my living room. Are you telling me Travis and Jasmine haven't even paid the vendors? Nope, she said, clearly enjoying the gossip. And the floral designer just sent out an Instagram post saying they no longer work with spiritually hostile clients. I think that was directed at Jasmine. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my tea. All that money they expected from us, and they hadn't even locked down the basics. It was like watching a luxury cruise ship set sail without bothering to check for a hull. That same afternoon, I got another message from Travis. Shorter this time. Desperate. Just get on the plane. I'll cover everything. But the NDA still stands. Please, Derek. There was something about that please that made me pause. For a second, I wondered if maybe he really was just in over his head, if Jasmine had sold him a dream, and now he couldn't wake up without drowning. But then I remembered everything else. The lectures, the guilt trips, the way he'd turned on us so easily when we didn't fall in line. So I called him. I needed to hear how far gone he really was. He picked up fast. No small talk, no hello. Just so, are you coming? I'm not signing an NDA to watch you recite vows next to a man in a linen tunic waving crystals, I said. You do realize how insane this is, right? You don't understand, he said, his voice tight. Jasmine's family expects a certain standard. This isn't just a wedding, it's a legacy. No, I said. It's a money pit dressed in vegan hors d'oeuvres and spiritual gaslighting. And you're bleeding yourself dry to impress people who wouldn't cross the street to help you if you were on fire. Silence. Then he snapped. You think you're so much better because you stayed basic. Because you're comfortable being average. I had to laugh at that. You think I'm average because I don't need a rented villa and a drone light show to feel loved? He didn't respond. Not with words. Just a bitter exhale and a click as he hung up. I stared at my phone for a while, waiting to feel guilt or regret or anything close to shame. But all I felt was clarity. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about control. About him needing everyone to show up, just so he wouldn't have to face how much he'd lost himself in all of this. 2 hours later, Jasmine sent a message to the group chat that was equal parts rage and melodrama. To those of you who abandoned us in our time of divine celebration, you've revealed your shadows. This wedding is for those who walk in the light. Uncle Neil, bless him, immediately replied, then let the light pay your caterer. He was booted from the chat within the hour. The next day, Natalie called me with the kind of laugh that comes from witnessing a slow-motion explosion. The yacht company canceled, she said between gasps. They said the contract was underfunded and spiritually combative. That's not even a real sentence, I said. It is when Jasmine's involved, she replied. And just when we thought it couldn't get worse, it did. Marcia found out through a mutual contact that the wedding venue itself, this multi-million-dollar cliffside compound with an infinity pool and a private chef, was threatening to cancel unless they received full payment within 72 hours. Apparently, Travis had only paid a partial deposit and kept promising the rest was on the way. He had charged all of us like we were attending a damn film premiere, but he hadn't even locked down the location. It was no longer a wedding. It was a collapsing house of cards built out of chakra stones and overdue invoices. And somehow, none of it surprised me anymore. At that point, most of us figured the whole thing would just quietly fall apart behind the scenes. Maybe with one last frantic email from Jasmine blaming Mercury retrograde for everything. But then, just when things started to go quiet for a couple days, Natalie called me first thing in the morning, her voice already crackling with disbelief. You need to sit down, she said before I could even say hello. She gave him an ultimatum. I blinked, still half asleep and trying to find my slippers. What kind of ultimatum? She told Travis to cut off the entire family. Every single one of us. She told him if he doesn't go no contact by midnight, the wedding's off. I sat down slowly, one shoe on, one off, still not totally convinced I wasn't dreaming. She wants him to disown the entire family over her half-catered, half-canceled Santorini wedding? Yep, Natalie said, barely suppressing a laugh. She told him we were vibrationally misaligned, and that we've sabotaged her spiritual ascension. Honestly, I think she believes she's the heroine in some kind of self-help novel. So what's he going to do? I asked, knowing damn well Travis had spent months orbiting her reality distortion field like some lost moon. No idea, Natalie said. But I swear, if he actually does it, I'm sending her a fruit basket with a note that says congrats on winning the dumbest man alive. For the rest of that day, the family group chat was completely silent, which, after weeks of chaos, was more unnerving than the usual storm of reactions, screenshots, and sarcastic commentary. Nobody knew what to say. No one wanted to poke the bear while it was still making its decision. And for once, even Jasmine was quiet, probably off writing her breakup manifesto in advance, just in case things didn't go her way. Then, at 9:42 p.m., my phone rang. It was Travis. I stared at the screen for a full 30 seconds before answering, already bracing for another guilt trip or some last-ditch offer involving money and spiritual contracts. I called it off, he said before I could even say hello. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't slept or stopped talking in days. It's over. Wedding's done. Jasmine's gone. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. I just let those words sit there in the air like smoke after a fire. Are you okay? I finally asked. He laughed, but it wasn't the light kind. It was the hollow, post-apocalyptic kind. Not really, he said, but I think I'm going to be. Then he told me everything. She'd given him the ultimatum just like Natalie said, told him that if he truly loved her, he would prove it by cutting off every single member of his family. Not just the ones who'd bailed. Everyone. Mom, Dad, me, Natalie, even Grandma Doris, who had literally fought in protest during the 60s and somehow still got labeled a source of toxic resistance. When he hesitated, she flipped, threw a sandal at the wall, accused him of being small-minded, weak, emotionally constipated, and tethered to his family's poverty vibration. She called the wedding a lost cause, told him she regretted everything, then locked herself in the villa bathroom and started live-streaming a breakdown to her followers on Instagram, crying while holding one of those rose quartz facial rollers. I just stood there, Travis said, listening to her scream, and I felt nothing. It was like something finally snapped, and I saw her for what she actually was. A grifter in a maxi dress. I offered. A controlling narcissist with a superiority complex and a goddamn incense addiction, he replied. I packed my bag and left while she was still ranting on Instagram Live. He was calling me from the airport lounge, sitting with a single duffel bag, no plan, no return ticket, just a canceled wedding and a maxed-out credit card. Part of me wanted to feel bad for him, but the rest of me, honestly, the much louder part, was relieved that he'd finally seen the house of mirrors for what it was. Later that night, after we got off the phone, I was scrolling Twitter, half bored and half numb, when I saw it. Jasmine had already started her damage control tour. She posted a thread titled, "I just want to speak my truth," which was basically influencer code for, "I'm about to manipulate you with vague trauma references and no actual accountability." She claimed she had been abandoned, that Travis's family had pressured him to betray his own heart, and that she had suffered emotional abuse under the guise of love. She used phrases like spiritual betrayal and soul divorce, and halfway through the thread, she posted a GoFundMe. I clicked the link out of sheer morbid curiosity. The campaign was titled "Help Me Heal from Emotional Devastation," and the goal was $50,000, supposedly to cover therapy, relocation, and the loss of brand partnerships. I called Natalie immediately. "Have you seen this? She's asking strangers to fund her healing journey after she emotionally extorted her fiancé into exile," she said, already laughing. I scrolled down through the comments and saw that the internet had already turned on her. "Weren't you charging people 74 grand to attend your wedding like a week ago?" One person wrote. "Maybe try selling that engagement ring before asking us for money," said another. My favorite was, "This woman gives cult leader vibes with a Canva subscription." For the first time in weeks, I genuinely smiled. But the part that really cemented the whole thing for me, the absolute chef's kiss of poetic justice, came a few days later when Travis forwarded me a message Jasmine had sent him. After all the public meltdown, after dragging him online, after trying to paint herself as some spiritual martyr, she had the nerve to text him privately. "Hey, I know things ended abruptly, but I still think there's something worth saving between us. Can we talk?" He hadn't responded yet, and honestly, I didn't think he would. "Let her sit in it," Natalie told him. Let her sit in the silence and finally hear the sound of her own bullshit. That silence was long overdue. Travis came back home 2 weeks after the wedding officially imploded, carrying one duffel bag, 2-day-old stubble, and the kind of haunted expression people wear after escaping cults or high-interest pyramid schemes. When I opened the door and saw him standing there in jeans and a hoodie, no designer watch, no linen blazer, no smugness, I didn't feel vindicated or even angry. I just felt this weird, slow thaw of something that had been frozen between us for years. He stepped inside quietly, dropped his bag just past the threshold, and looked around like the apartment might judge him. "Thanks for letting me crash here for a few days," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck like a teenager who just got kicked out of prom. "You look like you just got back from war," I said, shutting the door behind him. "Kind of feels like I did," he replied, eyes not quite meeting mine. He settled onto the couch and just sat there for a while, elbows on knees, staring at nothing. I didn't push. I figured the man had just detonated his own engagement, dropped out of a wedding that cost more than most people's college education, and left behind an entire disaster of unpaid bills, unpaid vendors, and a woman who had tried to turn him into a personal disciple. Later that night, we went to our parents' place. Natalie was already there, halfway through a glass of wine and 10 minutes into a brutal takedown of Jasmine's latest attempt at rebranding herself online. She was calling her new content Healing Through Chaos, and apparently, she just posted a video where she lit a candle, sobbed into a mirror, and then tried to sell a downloadable journal prompt set for $19.99. Mom didn't ask questions. She just hugged Travis like he'd been returned from the wilderness. Dad, ever the stoic Midwesterner, gave him one of those claps on the shoulder that conveyed more than any speech ever could. No one mentioned Santorini. No one mentioned NDAs. No one mentioned how many people he'd burned to get here. We just sat around the dinner table like we used to, eating roast chicken and mashed potatoes, pretending like we hadn't all just survived a psychological siege disguised as a wedding. But Travis wasn't the same, and that was a good thing. He didn't dominate the conversation. He didn't make it about himself. He listened more than he spoke. And when Natalie cracked a joke about spiritual caterers ghosting their clients, he laughed. Not defensively, not bitterly, but like someone who had finally stepped out of the cave and saw how ridiculous the shadows had been. Over the next few months, he rebuilt, but not in the way I expected. There were no big announcements. No social media updates. No long posts about redemption. He started working again. Freelance consulting, small clients, boring stuff. The kind of work that didn't make headlines, but actually paid bills. He got back into running. He started going to therapy. And for once in his life, he stopped trying to become a brand and started acting like a person. Then he met Lena. They met at a business networking event, which sounded ominous at first, because, Jasmine 2.0 vibes, but Lena wasn't anything like her. She was grounded, sharp, funny in this quiet, dry way that made people lean in. She didn't wear crystals or demand vibrational commitment. She worked in marketing, but the normal kind, not the unicorn visionary kind. She had opinions on spreadsheets and podcast analytics and made fun of LinkedIn influencers. When I finally met her over drinks, she shook my hand and said, "So you're the brother. The one with the Reddit-worthy life story." I choked on my beer. Travis just rolled his eyes. I told her everything. Full disclosure. Even the part about the memory lounge and the dolphin whisperer. I asked. "Especially that part," she said, laughing. And just like that, something shifted. I didn't realize how much weight I'd been carrying until I saw my brother sitting across from me. Actually happy for the first time in what felt like years. Not manic, not manicured, just content. He wasn't performing. He wasn't selling anything. He was just a guy who'd been to the edge, looked into the abyss of influencer weddings, and decided maybe family dinners weren't so bad after all. Meanwhile, on Jasmine's side of the circus, the wheels kept coming off. Her GoFundMe plateaued at $1,300, most of which came from people who thought it was satire. She tried launching a spiritual leadership course that got roasted so hard in the comments, she deleted all promotional posts after a week. Her follower count dropped by the thousands, and brands that once sent her free skincare stopped replying to her emails. Apparently, one company even issued a public statement saying they no longer partnered with emotionally manipulative content creators. But the absolute peak of the karmic justice came when Natalie called me one night, gasping with laughter. "You are not going to believe this," she said. Her parents remortgaged their house. I sat up. What? They put down massive deposits for the wedding, assuming the guest payments would cover the rest. When everyone bailed, they got stuck with it. They had to take out a second mortgage to avoid legal threats from the venue. "She sold the fantasy," I said slowly, "but forgot to deliver the product." "Oh, it gets worse," Natalie said. She tried starting a healing podcast, but people kept calling in and asking about the yacht. She ended the first episode early and posted a 30-minute rant about haters blocking her abundance. A few weeks later, Jasmine had the audacity to text Travis again. Just one line. "I've been thinking about you a lot lately." He read it, took a screenshot, sent it to me, and then deleted it without replying. "She's probably hoping you'll cover her mortgage," I said. "She'll die waiting," he replied. He didn't even seem angry. Just done. Like someone who'd finally crawled out of a fever dream and knew better than to go back in. It's been over a year now, and things have finally leveled out. Travis and Lena are still together. Nothing flashy, no staged announcements, no destination ceremonies. They're just good. The rest of the family slowly recovered too. Uncle Neil still brings up the wedding whenever he wants to roast someone. Grandma Doris sends Jasmine memes by accident, thinking she's texting Natalie. And sometimes, when the group chat gets quiet, someone drops a photo of a yacht or a plate of overpriced vegan ravioli, and we all lose it again. As for me, I still can't believe any of it happened. I still have the original invitation printed out and taped to my fridge, not as a warning, but as a trophy. A reminder that sometimes, saying no to insanity is the most loving thing you can do. Because weddings come and go. But a good story? A good story lives forever.